speaker is Alisa Ellis. She is another warrior mom, and she's partner in crime to Renee. They're neighbors, and they joined this fight together. She's actually a mom of 7. Just like me and other women here, she learned a little bit about Common Core and was concerned, and then began that long, arduous, project of weeding through everything and trying to figure it out. And once you start that, then you do become a warrior, because it is something that's definitely not good for our kids. So I'd like to welcome Alisa. She's going to be talking about the Common Core assessments and the workforce and her from her perspective as a teacher. So,
thank you. I'm not a teacher. You're fine. And I just closed my document. Thank you so much for putting this together. I don't know where Yvonne went, but I am thrilled to be here. And thank you. I am so impressed and proud of what she has done. Last week I heard a statement that leaders don't create followers. They create more leaders. And that is what we're seeing happening around the country as people start doing research and then they take the lead, like we've seen with Yvonne and Glenn and others around the country. And I am so proud to see this happening, so thank you. I'm Alisa, and I do have 7 kids, and I started looking into this. It is fun. They are great kids. And I started looking into this purely because of the academic reasons, because my husband and I have always said we're raising nerds. And we just cared about education so much, and that is where my passion lied as a mother. I wanted to make sure that they got what they needed to succeed in life. And when I started looking into this after I was at a parent-teacher conference in 2011, what I saw was control being stripped away. And it didn't matter if these were the very best standards that ever existed. They wouldn't be good enough for my children. Because we are taking away control of our education system in America, and we need to take education back to the very truly local level. No Child Left Behind brought on an onslaught of endless testing. Many thought Common Core was the solution. Teachers felt oppressed by No Child Left Behind. They thought Common Core was the solution. And where I live, the teachers often would tell us, this has brought back my love for teaching. But it's because where I live, they're taking the standards as one portion and trying to evaluate that without linking the rest of the package together. But you have to look at the entire package. And what Common Core does is it strips away that local voice. And many of the things that the teachers in my area are learning at teacher trainings can be done without stripping away local control of education. In 2009, Race to the Top for assessments was announced. And in essence, what it did was it bribed the states with a $350 million award to create new assessments. New York partnered with Park. I'm sorry, there's 2 testing, I skipped a place, sorry, excuse me. There were 2 testing consortia created. SBAC, which Utah joined, where I'm from, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortia, and PARCC, or Partnership for Assessment of Readiness of College and Careers. And that is what New York partnered with 25 other states, and it received $170 million to create standards. Now, Jamie talked about some of the federal laws that prohibit a nationalized testing. So what happened is this administration circumvented that law by creating 2 testing groups, and they had to translate all their data together, in essence creating one national test. But they just skirted the law. And so what Park did is, remember I told you that many of the teachers feel like Common Core and these tests are their solution out of No Child Left Behind, because they were tired of being forced to teach to a test. They were tired of that. But with PARCC, in their own words, they say that it comes with a series of assessments. So it's not less testing, it's more. Now, to truly standardize, you'd have to have the same schedule, the same computer equipment, and turn this into a giant factory of test-producing students and country. This is not what I envision for my children. Recently, Park announced that the tests were almost guaranteed to cost more money than most states were spending on testing. Pioneer Institute did an independent cost analysis, and they estimated that the cost in New York, as you've heard, would be over $1 billion. $1 billion. I'm all for spending money on our children and education, and I'm tired of people accusing me of not loving kids because I don't want to spend $1 billion on something that is untested and unproven. That doesn't mean we don't love kids. I have 7 of them. I think I like them a little. Those who control the test control so many things that are happening in the classroom. They control the curriculum. They control the schools. That is not local control in education. That is not how America was set up to be. They've cloaked the test in secrecy. Teachers can't even see the test, like you heard earlier. They can see the results later, but the people that are pushing this entire education reform, they're controlling the testing companies, and then they can turn up or down the success rate of the test. How are we supposed to know whether or not the measuring stick and the measurement are even successful, because they're all in, excuse my term, in bed together, basically. Could it be so that Common Core can come in and save the day?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
In New York, you saw the test results come out this year. Are you Dr. Rella? I'm sorry, I didn't meet. Okay, thank you. And I'm so proud of you. Thank you for standing up.
Yes.
So we get this secret thing, and we're supposed to pretend like we're okay with it. And I don't know if you realize, but in the National Governors Association manual for implementing Common Core in this entire package, it says, be prepared for failing tests, and you may have to adjust your cut score a little bit so that, then it can look better. That's not okay. This has been set up to be the perfect tool for reward or punishment without accountability. This cartoon was made for No Child Left Behind specifically, but it's very relevant still. A test simply can't be the only measure that we use when we're talking about so many different children. I have 7 very different children. Very different children. I can't stress how different they are. My oldest son, he does well in school, and he tests well. He tests well. He does well. But he's a junior right now. This year he decided he cares a little bit more about school, but last year as a sophomore, girls, that's where his mind was. He didn't really care about the things that I was saying. Hey, have you done your homework? He didn't care. He cared about girls. It didn't mean that he wasn't smart. And he does well at school. I don't want to pretend that he doesn't. He does well, but he was just that's not where his interest lied. But he still did well on all the tests. He scores in the top 8% of the nation on most standardized tests that he's given. My second daughter, she doesn't really test that well. She doesn't. She tests good. I mean, if you look at the average student, she's definitely above average. But I have to tell you, she's number 1 in her class. Number 1. She's a sophomore. And she has been since about 7th grade. Because she has self-determination. I don't ever tell her to go do her homework. I don't ever tell her or have to ask her if she got her things done. She does that on her own. We don't know whose child she is because I was up till 4 in the morning trying to get my presentation done. She has her stuff done weeks in advance. We aren't necessarily from the same club. But a test can't measure that. It just can't. So when she was not able to be placed in some of the classes, I went in and the teachers backed me up because she is number 1 in her class. In fact, in 5th grade, teachers thought that I was doing some of her work for her because her handwriting is meticulously neater than anyone I've ever seen. It's just her personality. And yet, if you went to class with her, they all think she's American, the voice, because she doesn't really come across like that. So I'm just saying, we've got a lot of different personalities going on. My 3rd son, we call him the absent-minded professor. He tests well, and he does well in school, but he can't remember what he went upstairs for. So my point is that, and the list goes on and on, I have more kids than that. But they are different individuals. And a test, no matter how great, cannot measure a child's worth. And just to be clear, I am not opposed to testing. But high-stakes testing is a different thing than a spelling test or a test that our teachers at a local level can produce and give our children to decide where they are. Policymakers even recognize that this is an untested experiment. It says the public could maybe benefit from this approach. This was in, I can't read my source, sorry. It's from governing.com, just an article they produced, and they talked to some policymakers but didn't mention which one specifically. So this system of punishment or reward will cause teachers to teach to the test like never before. When I went to our policy director at my local district, he confirmed that to me. He said, you won't hear a lot of teachers complaining about our standardized testing in Utah because the technology was so great, and if you saw what they had used before, this was so much better. But that's not the same thing. And he just said, in no uncertain terms, they will be teaching to the test like we've never seen before under this system. I'm out of order here, but American Psychological Association said that tests, when used properly, are among the most sound and objective ways to measure student performance. But when test results are used inappropriately or as a single measure of performance, they can have unintended adverse consequences. And the problem with the testing is the data connected to it, where we're putting all this pressure on the outcome of the test. And this is where a lot of teachers are. They are feeling it, and they've been living with it for decades. Campbell's law states that the more any quantitative social indicator is used for social decision-making, the more subject it will be to corruption pressures, and the more apt it will be to distort and corrupt the social processes it is intended to monitor. The tests were designed to improve teaching, but because they are improperly using the test by tying so much high stakes to it, they're changing the way teachers, teachers are teaching, so please forgive me if the slide doesn't match up, because I emailed it to myself, and when I uploaded it, the format changed. Don't you love that? You insert pictures into a Word document, and then they like to just move themselves around randomly. So, Let me go back to this slide really quick, sorry. So this is the kind of pressure we're talking about. Now, I try to challenge my own kids at home. I want them to be put out of their comfort zone a little bit. I don't want them to skate through life and pretend like they don't have to do anything hard. One of our mottos is, you can do hard things. You can. But when we're tying all this data and having all this federal oversight on these teachers, their jobs are dependent on how that child performs. Now, my children, I like to think, come from a fairly good home, but there are many children that don't. And when you're tying so much to that can't measure a child's worth, it puts a divisive nature between the teacher and the child. Because the teacher can do little about the abuse that child might be facing at home or other unseen factors. And I think it's important that we remember that children are more than a number. The state longitudinal fact page says that we will be having to tie individual students to their teachers. New York received $20 million roughly for your state longitudinal data system. Now, did you go over what longitudinal means? Longitudinal means that follows you from year to year to year to year to year. Who wants that record on their head? It also talks about, sorry, I don't know where that went, but it also talks about it's a way to identify teachers and match teachers to their students, and then the fact page says that it's also to identify teachers who are succeeding so we can reward them. And find teachers who are struggling to help them improve. While I do believe that that's necessary, and like any other profession, there are teachers that are successful and teachers that aren't. It's just like any other profession in life. But nobody likes to be micromanaged. And if we're taking away their ability to think creatively and to teach with passion, there's a problem, and we're losing the heart and soul. And I don't like the media blitz across the country demeaning and demonizing teachers. Are you all perfect? No, you're not. But if you ask any parent across America, the vast majority of people love their teachers. They do. Now, I just think this is crazy to me. The equitable distribution of teachers and principals is one of the goals of the Common Core aligned reforms. Do teachers and principals who are supportive of Common Core realize that if they're marked as highly effective, they may be redistributed to another school under the banner of equitable education to replace teachers and principals in schools that are ineffective? This is in Race to the Top for each and every child, then the ESCA flexibility request. And if your state already got a waiver and you go to renew it, there's more emphasis on this equitable redistribution of teachers in the next round of No Child Left Behind waivers. This No Child Left Behind waiver drives me crazy because it's being sold as, woo, we get out of this bad law. Because nobody likes it, everybody thinks and knows that it was a failure. And so instead of giving states relief from the law, the administration is using this so-called relief as a mechanism for more control. And that's a huge problem. The equitable, this is from For Each and Every Child. the equitable distribution of highly effective, well-qualified teachers across districts and schools will be tied, this is just a document. This isn't a law right here. They want it to be tied as a condition of federal funding. I have a problem with that. So this sets up a system where teachers, they want to be able to teach how they want to teach. But they feel trapped. Because all of a sudden, that kid just looks like a punk teenager, and he's going to make me lose my job if I don't follow this stuff. And I don't know that I really want him in my classroom, because he's going to make me look bad. Margaret Wilkins is a retired teacher in Utah. She retired last year, and she said the joy and creativity of teaching has been taken away by Common Core. Kids and teachers are both burning out. Is this what we really want? Have you noticed that experienced teachers are fleeing or being forced out of your schools? Yes. And then we're getting programs like Teach for America, where they're sending in teachers that have only been trained for 5 or 6 weeks and only are committing to 1 or 2 years. Renee was a teacher, and she said it's about the 3rd or 4th year where you realize, I kind of hit my stride, and I know what I'm doing. We don't get that. You will get it with some. There's always people that are naturally more inclined to certain things, but the vast majority of these teachers, it will be harder for them to hit that stride because they'll already moved on to the next thing they're going to do in life.
I think their education is paid for too.
So why? Why are we doing all this stuff? Why? As Jamie talked about, it's a transition to workforce. Thank you. There has been a push for quite some time to an outcome-based approach to education. Mark Tucker is a prominent education reformer, and he says that he wrote a letter to send to Hillary Clinton, and he said that they want to remold the entire American system into a seamless web that literally extends from cradle to grave. And it's the same system for everyone, coordinated by a system of labor market boards at the local, state, and federal levels, where curriculum and job matching will be handled by counselors assessing the integrated computer-based program. We're seeing the ideas that he laid out in this letter initiated across the country in schools. And then we get terms like this, educonomy. This is from an organization called the Education Commission of the States that 49 states are a member of, and it says, in an aligned system, education institutions are used as the arbiter of student supply and workforce demand. They put together this top model where they're using this data system, the P20 system, and they're partnering with the Department of Ed and the Department of Workforce to create the supply they want. And in New York, you have Goals 2025 that's partnered with the Department of Ed and the Lumina Foundation to produce those outcomes they're looking for. In Utah, we have something called Prosperity 2020, where they talk about needing to align the future workforce needs, the education with the future workforce needs. This is not the American system. It is not. This week, and sorry, and thank you. This is who paid for this model. Thank you. We really appreciate it. This week, 40 CEOs convened in D.C. with Secretary Arne Duncan to talk about this very thing, how they can align the future workforce with our education needs. And then they also talk about what they're going to do to stop this battle against Common Core. We need some more commercials. How much money are each of you CEOs willing to put into this? We have to stand up and do something about this. In 2012, Secretary Duncan, he went and spoke to, I can't read my thing, but anyways, he spoke to somebody, and you can look at the source. It's small for me, so it's hard to read. Where he said that the president had outlined a bold goal for our nation, that by 2020, we want to have the world's most competitive workforce. And that's why we propose our $1 billion investment in career academies. And to achieve that goal, we've launched our comprehensive Cradle to Career Reform agenda. In 2011, I witnessed this firsthand when sitting down sorry, I'm losing my thing. Sitting down with my son's high school counselor. What mother wouldn't want to hear that her son is brilliant and capable of the highest paying jobs in America? Remember, this is the oldest son. He does really well. I certainly was proud, and I trusted the system. So when the counselor told me that clearly my son wasn't meant to be a history professor, so let's pull him out of AP World History and let's put him in a class that follows his career path. I said, okay, sign me up. Because I trusted the system. I trusted his authority. And it wasn't until one day I woke up and I realized what was happening to America. And then we started talking to people and meeting with people. And the day that our superintendent told us he was tired, I told him that if he wasn't willing to fight, I would. And then I would talk to every teacher in our valley. We live in the Mountain Valley. Every principal, every parent that I could find. And I would keep talking until I talked to every person that I could, until every single person found out what was going on and they could decide for themselves if they were agreed with this. I think we've effectively helped spread that. When did we decide that it was okay for the government to collude with private companies to claim such a determining role in the education, attitudes, and career paths of our children? We need to all wake up and then study up, speak up, and stand up to save our freedom in this great country, because my children are not for sale.
Standing out. Are these moms awesome or what? Thank you guys. How inspiring. When you were talking, it reminded me of a Pearson video that I had seen. It was a promotional video that they put out, and it was designed to show us what they were envisioning for the future of our kids. It was hilarious. They had this little boy wake up in the morning, and there's this kind of creepy music playing. And he wakes up in the morning, and he cups his eyes, and he reaches by his bedside, and he grabs his little iPad. And he touches it, and it logs him when he woke up. You know, Johnny woke up at 6:45, and he goes downstairs to breakfast, and he brings his trusty little iPad with him. And there's no talking, it's just kind of creepy music. And he gets on the bus, and him and his friends are all collaborating on a project that they're doing for school, all via technology, probably provided by Microsoft with software from another big tech company. And he gets to school, and the most interesting thing about the video was that when he got to school, what was missing were teachers. He was on a screen, and he was being fed information and lectures and studies, and there were women kind of walking around, and they were overseeing him, kind of like babysitters or monitors. There were no teachers. There were no maps. It was a very sterile looking environment, and I thought it was the creepiest video I had ever seen. Frankly, when I saw it, I'm like, this is what they're envisioning for my children, and it really scared me. So thank you for putting that into perspective and bringing this to our attention, because it's frightening. It feels more and more like my kids are guinea pigs, and they're trying out all their new ideas on our kids, and that's just not going to stand. Our